Penn State at Ohio State. A Big Ten matchup, huge game. It is nowhere near as huge as we thought it was going to be. James Franklin versus Ryan Day. This is the opportunity. One of the coaches ain't even there no more. Big noon kickoff, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. Ohio State has won 8 straight in this game, with 4 being by 1 score, and Ohio State is favored by 20.5 points. If I had told you that in the preseason, you would have been like, dude, ain't no way. Favored by 20.5, that don't even make no sense. Well, let's talk about coach versus coach, because this is actually one of the more interesting things of the coaches that have been fired during the 2025 season, because this is more than we've ever seen during a season in the history of college football. Is it that those coaches, that they all faced, a fraction of the pressure that Ryan Day has faced, despite none of them being in his neighborhood as far as regular season success, because he is the greatest coach of all time in terms of winning percentage. That's just period. Those are facts. But this is not a job at Ohio State that is for the faint of heart or is worried about winning percentages. They are worried about beating Michigan and winning national championships. And it is a must win every single week. You cannot slip up against a Penn State team that has nothing to lose, that is down 2 quarterbacks potentially. Now, you have to find a way to get over the hump against Michigan if you are Ryan Day in Ohio State, and you know that your offensive coordinator is hearing things from his agent on a daily basis about interest elsewhere. And remember, I told everybody in the preseason that this was Brian Hartline's last season at Ohio State, that he would either do a terrible job at offensive coordinator by Ohio State standards and then get other opportunities to learn on the job elsewhere because he was not going to take a demotion, or he was going to be a head coaching candidate after this season and be somewhere else. Well, your boy is right again. If you're Ohio State, you reset the bar by winning a national championship this season, and they're ranked number 1. So everybody knows that the expectation for this season is exactly what it was last year. If you didn't respect Ryan Day before this season, it is hard not to do so at this point in time, because this man is literally out here being successful, walking between the raindrops. Now, over on Penn State side, this is Terry Smith's opportunity. This is his chance to do right by his alma mater, because he is the interim head coach of the Nittany Lions. And he was a receiver at Happy Valley in his time in the late 80s. One of the more frustrating things about the end of the James Franklin tenure is that no wide receiver for the last 3 seasons has even approached, not even gotten close to the 55 catches for 850 yards that Terry Smith had in his senior year in 1991. Now, it is probably not going to happen this year either, that you're going to have a wide receiver approach that. But maybe Smith, maybe he can help open up this offense and not play as conservative as Franklin had them playing. Or maybe it's Andy Kotnicki the whole time, and it wasn't James Franklin putting his thumb on the offense. At this point, the Nittany Lions have 4 straight losses to Power 4 opponents by a total of 13 points this year. You're like, wow. That don't really sound that bad. Don't really sound like maybe James Franklin should have got fired. But that's whole nother conversation. And think about this. The sky was falling in Penn State, but the Nittany Lions have lost 4 straight games to Power 4 opponents by a total of 13 points this year. And then 5 straight by 16 total points if you count the college football playoff loss to Notre Dame. What has playing it safe gotten you at Penn State? Nothing. Terry, let it rip, pal. Now, you're not going to be in this position much longer anyway as Penn State's interim head coach. So give yourself a shot to win the job. Give Penn State a shot to win the game. Do not try to keep the game close. No risk it, no biscuit. This is your shot. Now, let's look at these quarterbacks. You got Julian Sayin, whose game against Wisconsin actually might be the best game that any quarterback in college football has had this season, outside of Damon Williams against Rutgers when Washington played against. Sayin was 36 for 42, 393 yards, and 4 touchdowns with no turnovers. Now, in Big Ten play, Julian Sayin is 81% completions, 100 for 124. 11 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Right now, it would honestly be hard to argue that he's not in a two-man race with Fernando Mendoza for Conference Player of the Year honors and then potentially Heisman honors as well. But do not think that Julian Sayin is just going to walk onto the field and blow the doors off this Penn State secondary. Now, for all of their faults, Penn State's pass defense has been one of the best statistical units in the entire country. They are only allowing 15 completions at 141 yards passing per game in the Big Ten play. And then they're having as many interceptions in 4 as they have had touchdown passes. So don't think that it's just going to be up top city on this defense. It's the offense that's been the biggest issue. And one of those touchdown passes actually came in double overtime against Dante Moore and Oregon. So in the regular time, they have been good. If Sayin is going to be a legit Heisman contender, though, this is an important step on this journey because these Penn State boys are actually playing for pride at this point in time, and they are not just going to just show up at the stadium and Ohio State can roll them little Buckeye stickers on the field and win, because that's not going to happen. Now, for Penn State, their quarterback situation, Drew Aller's out for the season, so they had to turn to Ethan Grunkemeyer to attempt to salvage the season. Grunkemeyer was the number 8 quarterback in the country coming out of high school, according to 247, and he was in the same class where Julian Sayin was ranked number 3. Now, the wild fact about Grunkemeyer is that he actually played high school ball about 15 miles from Ohio State University and grew up an Ohio State fan. This was so much so that he was wearing Buckeyes gear in the stands of the 2016 Penn State whiteout game when they beat Ohio State. And that was the last victory that Penn State had over Ohio State. And Grunkemeyer was a prospect that Penn State believed in when his only offer was Miami of Ohio. And then he climbed the quarterback rankings as a senior, which is actually rare for dudes to do, so you know you was balling. And he had a rough start, 100% against Iowa in his first game. But with 2 weeks to prepare, we're actually going to see how he competes against the team that he used to root for, because there has to be personal motivation there as well. And the quarterback that he finished behind in the high school rankings. Oh, that's the thing. Ohio State's offense versus Penn State's defense. I already told y'all that Penn State's defense has been amongst the best in the country. But they also haven't had to face off against Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Let's not get this twisted. And Tate has been Ohio State's deep threat all this year. And some defenses have actually had success taking him away, like Illinois and Washington. And while he's had massive games against Wisconsin and Minnesota, you do have to know that there can be a bottling up. Now, Jeremiah Smith, he is somebody that Brian Hartline, that he works the ball to repeatedly to keep him involved in the game plan. Now, Smith is leading the Big Ten in receptions, but only 6th in yards, and outside of the top 25 in the Big Ten this year in terms of yards per reception. So he's been more of a reliable safety blanket, move the sticks, get the chains moving, early down, first down, win first down kind of guy. Now, that doesn't mean that that's his ceiling at all, because with Jeremiah Smith, if you can tackle, you can limit the damage. But with Carnell Tate, you have to pray that Sayin isn't brave enough to even put the ball up, because there's a pretty good chance that this dude is going to come down with it. Contested catches, hard catches, one-handed catches. He got the whole bag. Freshman running back, Bo Jackson. For Ohio State, he actually has seemed to emerge as the primary option out of the backfield, and he's had at least 14 touches in every Big Ten game so far. But there has also been a lot of garbage time to get a freshman these carries. So they might actually stick with C.J. Donaldson in a tight game, if we ever get to see a tight game out of Ohio State, because they look fantastic. Now, the Penn State defense, they've given up at least 176 yards rushing in 3 of their last 4 games. And that's actually something that only happened 3 times all last season. And Ohio State was one of those games. So look for those Buckeyes to go heavy on the ground in this game. Now, let's look at the Penn State offense versus the Ohio State defense. Penn State has run the ball over 40 more times than they've attempted to pass the ball. That would make sense. especially if Singleton hadn't had a complete fall off in terms of his production. He's going from 6.5 yards a carry to under 4 this season and isn't even returning kickoffs anymore. Now, the wide receiver transfers in this Penn State offense have been a huge disappointment. But the question is, are we coaching? Is it system? Is it quarterback? Or is it the players? Take some sort of blame in the situation. But it is not like that they've had a lot of opportunities to succeed either. Here's the truth. At some point, wide receivers need to start looking at a school's track record of targeting their number 2 and number 3 guys and ask themselves, are they going to be set up for success? Because of everybody that came in, Troy transfer Devontae Ross is probably your best bet to have a decent game against Ohio State. Now, Ohio State, though, this defense extremely stingy against the run. They are problematic. And the safeties, they're playing out of their minds. Caleb Downs is playing out of his minds. And Arvell Reese is playing out of his mind in the run game, pass game, all of it. And nobody outside of Illinois has had more than one score against Ohio State. They are averaging fractional points per drive. Nobody outside of Illinois has even had a rushing touchdown against Ohio State. This is a brick wall, and I'm not sure Penn State has a sledgehammer or a chisel or anything else that can break it down. Now, let's look at the X factors in the game. If there is an X factor for Penn State, it is going to have to be Ethan Grunkemeyer. And he is going to have to perform like somebody who would have been a Buckeye had he been highly rated earlier in his high school career, because that's where he wanted to go. And his emotions are for sure going to be high because it was the team that he rooted for. And now he has a chance to go stone them on a big stage. A lot of these Penn State guys are partly auditioning to be priority portal or retention recruits and not just break an 8-year losing streak, because whoever the next coach is that comes in, they're either going to want those players, push them in the portal, or other people are going to bid very high for them. Now, Ohio State, for their X factor, if Penn State is really a team that you can run on, then Bo Jackson might have to have the type of breakout game that sets him up to be a household name. Because if he came into the situation at Ohio State already having a household name, but not for himself, for the real Bo Jackson. So now he can establish his own name. I am going to take Penn State to lose this football game, just not by more than 21 points. I am going to take Penn State plus 20.5, but Ohio State clears. Ohio State wins somewhere between 9 and 17 points. I'm George Wrighster. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the show. Peace out. Catch you guys later. And stay on the channel. We got plenty of good stuff.